show. Today is Tuesday, October 13th. It's a 13th, so you can expect plenty of open source production values, but of course you can also expect plenty of the Prince of Twitter, Andrew Malcolm of investors.com/Andrew Malcolm, at AH Malcolm on the Twitters. Welcome back to the show, sir. Great to have you with us.
It's good to be here, sir.
Well, and I got to tell you, it's always fun on Tuesdays, and it's especially fun on a Tuesday when there's a debate that's going to be going on later in the evening. Now, you have some debate prep that you've already written for investors.com. I just put up, I linked that along with my own debate prep for Hot Air and the Week, and it just went up at Hot Air. It's a Democratic debate, one of only 6 that will be held. Are you going to be watching it? This is my first question.
Yeah, I usually watch it on tape delay, as we say, maybe 10 or 15 minutes behind. So I like to take notes, and so I stop it and go back and make sure that I hear it. I've been at a number of debates, and it's better to watch it on TV.
You know, actually, I find it sort of interesting to watch it in person. I really actually do like it more when I'm there in person. I don't know if that would be the case necessarily, Andrew. If we're talking about the Democratic debate, I don't know if I'd feel, how shall I put it? I don't know if I'd feel like I was in the right place at the right time, but it's still, usually I think it's a little bit more interesting to be there on the ground and see what the reactions are, or go to a debate party or hold a debate party and try to make it work that way. But either way, I'm not necessarily certain I'm going to find it to be all that compelling, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
No, not compelling. Not compelling at all. In fact, for some reason, they switched away from Jake Tapper as the moderator. It's unfathomable to me. And so they're going to have, what's his name, Anderson Cooper. And so they're going to have the usual panel afterwards that says, Hillary didn't do herself any damage, and Bernie certainly made an impression, and the other 2 or 3 are starving for attention. It's pretty predictable. Hillary doesn't want to make a mistake, which is what front-runners do. She's not that great a campaigner, although she didn't do that bad in the debates back in 2008. That's a long, long time ago. And so Bernie has said he won't bring up the email, but I think you can count on on Anderson Cooper bringing up the email, and she'll have a pretty stock answer. Martin O'Malley, I think, has the most incentive to throw grenades, especially if he doesn't care if he gets a job in the Democrat administration.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. I think that Martin O'Malley and Jim Webb may be the one who's going to throw grenades on the email issue. I mean, here's the way I see it playing out. And I'm calling these 3 guys the 1%ers because among the 3 of them, they come up to slightly less than an average of 1%. In fact, I think they're all below 1%, if I'm not mistaken. They're all solidly below 1%. But I think the strategy is going to be for all of these people to go after Hillary. Hillary is going to obviously be the person of interest in all of these things, right? I mean, she's going to be the person who is going to be the standard by which they're all going to define themselves, because she's been the front runner for 7 years for this position, right? I mean, the Democratic Party has basically been holding her spot ever since she lost the primary in 2008 to Barack Obama. So she is the measuring stick for all of these people. She is the person that they all have to overcome. So here's the way I see it playing with these 1%ers, Andrew. You tell me if I'm wrong. First off, I think Martin O'Malley goes after her on basically on her track record as a progressive, and Sanders is going to do the same thing. Also, her record of accomplishment, I think, is even more to the point. He's a governor. He's got things he did in Maryland he can point to. She doesn't really have anything she can point to. Jim Webb goes after her on national security and on the emails, and especially in relates to classified material. And Lincoln Chafee is going to keep going after her on that Iraq War vote in 2002 because it's the only thing Lincoln Chafee wants to talk about in this thing is that vote in 2002 on the Iraq War. That's how I see that playing out, and I think those three can, well, not so much Lincoln Chafee, but I think I'm not even sure why Lincoln Chafee is there, and I'm not sure why Jim Webb's there either because he's not interested in campaigning for this thing. But I think Jim Webb and Martin O'Malley can do some damage to Hillary, and they don't have any incentive to hold back.
No, they don't. I think, I suspect that Sanders will go after Hillary more subtly than going after Hillary. That is, he will point out how long. Now, listen, Bernie has been in politics since Barack Obama was a 7-year-old eating dog in Jakarta. So Bernie is no outsider. Somehow, like Trump, he's got this outsider label. He's a long-time Politico. So he's going to go after her, I think, by pointing out that he was leftist before she thought leftist was cool. And so he'll be talking constantly about what he's done, what he's been for as a leftist. But it's a problem. Yeah, I mean, look at that crowd. They're all former senators.
Well, except for
there's some current senators on the Republican side, but what can senators talk about? You know, they can get in trouble for voting for the Iraq War or for being against for the surge before they were against the surge, or whatever. But they really don't do anything, you know, except talk. Well, I led a filibuster. Great. And that accomplished what?
Yeah.
So, in that sense, they're all just spinning their wheels in the sand, and the people who like them will like them, and the people who don't will be trying to find Tuesday Night Football, which doesn't exist, but they'll be looking.
Hey, but that Monday Night Football game was so good, you could probably play a rerun of it.
I thought you would open with that.
I was waiting for you to cue me up because, as always, you're the pro. I'm just the guy who's doing the reaction shots.
Yeah.
That was a hell of a game, wasn't it?
I'm the Browns fan, and you are the Steelers fan, and never the twain shall meet, which is why we always do these shows by remote, because we'd be at each other's throat in the studio.
That's exactly correct. That's exactly correct. But yeah, it was a hell of a game, wasn't it? To be honest with you, I didn't watch it. What?
I heard about the ending, and boy, there have been some strange endings. You know, last week, the Browns beat the Chargers, except, oh, wait, the Chargers missed field goal. They get to try it again because the Browns were offsides. And then they won it on a field goal in the last few seconds yesterday, and then last night's game with the Steelers. There've been some exciting things, but to be honest, I didn't watch an entire NFL game last year, and I don't think I will this year. You know, it's funny. It's kind of like and maybe it's just me, but I canceled my Sunday ticket subscription because every time I'd started to watch a game, I'd see some guy. It was like a walking tattoo shop, and they were talking about, he had been suspended for 6 games for cocaine abuse, but now he's back, and it was kind of like watching a lineup, and so I kind of swung over to watch the college football. I just enjoy the innocence there is more apparent. It may not exist, but it's more apparent.
There you go. It's a relative thing, I think, is what you're saying. All right. So back to the debate, which is, like football, only more boring.
Yeah, right.
So here's my thing on Sanders is I think that there's going to be more going on with Sanders. Sanders is going to have to prove that he's not just the crazy uncle in the attic, that he can actually carry the Democratic Party, even though he's not a member of it. if he gets the
Yeah,
nomination.
really.
So I think, I mean, if I was building Bernie's strategy, and nobody's asking me to do that, but if I was, my suggestion would be to, talk about Hillary's record and her flip-flops for sure, but come across much more statesman-like. Don't get, that cranked up voice and pointing fingers like he does at Meet the Press and all that kind of stuff. And use your natural self-effacing humor, because he does have that and it works for him, but make yourself a statesman of the party and give Democratic voters a comfort level so that when they're ready to dump Hillary, and they're pretty close to doing it now, they'll feel comfortable going to Bernie Sanders. So I don't see him as being a tag dog Bernie Sanders. I think if he's successful, he's statesman Bernie Sanders at this point. But the other three people on stage besides Hillary Clinton have no reason to hold back, and I don't think they will. Jim Webb's curious because our next guest is Salena Zito, and she was talking about the fact that Jim Webb is actually a pretty good model of a candidate to run against Hillary. But the problem is that Jim Webb hasn't been running anything. I mean, he doesn't do interview shows. He doesn't do campaign stops. This is a guy who filed this paperwork and has basically, I guess he's assuming that if you file it, they will come. I mean, he's not doing anything. And so nobody's going to talk to this guy. It's almost like he's coming back from a 9-month vacation to finally get back in the race. And I'm not sure why he's even bothering to do this anymore. He's certainly not interested in campaigning. Maybe this was his one moment. He just wanted to get on the debate stage and go after Hillary Clinton, but I think that's what you're going to see.
Yeah, I agree with you. Except I have never thought of Bernie Sanders as seriously contending for the nomination.
I didn't 6 months ago.
Oh, well, I still don't. I'm sorry. But what Ronald Reagan was 69, and everybody said he was too old. 75 at the inauguration. I don't think so. Especially running up against the Republican field, depending on who you include. Their average age is about 50. 50% older. The Democrat Party has gone left, but I hope they do run him, because I don't think he'd be that hard to beat.
No, I don't think he'd be that hard to beat either.
And we still have Joe, who is doing his Macbeth scenes over and over again, and I've decided. We'll see. You can throw this back at me, this soundbite, but I've decided he's not running, he wouldn't. If he was going to run, he wouldn't want to miss tonight. This is 1/6 of the debates. He wants to have this. Everybody wondering, although fewer are every day, whether he's going to run or not. It's keeping him relevant, I mean, the minute he says, "I'm not running," he becomes even more irrelevant than the usual vice president.
Right.
At this stage in a second term. I mean,
I think you're right about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's dwindling interest by the day in whether or not, and I understand that. I mean, seriously, if you were a Democrat Party or a Democrat member or a delegate, and somebody had to think this long about whether they really wanted to be your nominee, do you want them?
No.
I don't think so. And you can understand the severe trauma, emotional trauma that he's been through, losing his son, and then years and years ago, losing his wife and daughter, that's something that none of us can understand or want to go through. But I don't know. It's just Obama gave him a sop the other night in the 60 Minutes interview, saying he's going to go down in history. Of course, Obama said a lot of things that aren't true the other night, but he's going to go down in history as one of the greatest all-time vice presidents.
Isn't that sort of like, going down as one of the greatest all-time pinch runners in baseball? I mean,
Yeah.
That is not a. I mean that would be a sarcastic joke under almost any other circumstances, and I'm not necessarily discounting the fact that it might have been from Barack Obama, the one of the greatest vice presidents who never became president and who did nothing but what? I mean, what did he do?
Well, he was. Robert Gates said in his book, he said that Joe Biden had the distinction of being wrong on just about every single foreign policy issue the last half century.
Yeah, and continues to hold up that stellar record of foreign policy.
Although it does look like Iraq could split into three.
Well, he might have predicted that one. It's one thing to predict it; it's another thing to endorse it, and that was what Biden was doing back when it was actually cohering pretty well. Is that he was endorsing that outcome rather than just merely predicting it. All right, so let's focus on Hillary Clinton for a bit.
Okay.
The main thrust of my column today was that Hillary Clinton can win this debate, but it's probably not going to be terribly likely. And here's what I think that she has to do to win: is one, she has to suddenly find her authentic, charming self, if there is one. And so far, we've seen no evidence of it in 23 years of public life. And the other thing is that she has to deflect. She has to turn the conversation to the Republicans rather than to herself. And now, I don't think CNN's going to let her get away with that for very long. I think that they're going to keep asking questions about her experience and about her peccadillos, the email server scandal, probably more than anything else. But that's what she needs to do, and she needs to goad the other people on stage to go after Republicans rather than after her. If she can do that, if she can pull that off and look, somewhat charming and not the Hillary bot and not arrogant and entitled, I think she wins by not losing. I think the expectation is built up that she doesn't do well when she's under fire in these types of public forums, and that not losing is probably the equivalent of winning, especially given that she still has a significant lead over everybody else on that stage. Not losing would probably be winning, especially in the first debate. I still don't think that's likely, because I think she's going to get cornered on something. She's going to come across as haughty and arrogant, and it's going to kill her with independents, if not with Democrats. What would your advice to Hillary Clinton be going into this first debate?
Get sick. I was being facetious. It's very hard. You could, if I was the communication strategist for her, it's extremely hard. I had the good fortune of doing that, working with politicians who were to different degrees personable, and they had a certain charm that they could convey in public. I think that's very hard for Hillary, and she's got this stance now of, I don't know about you, but I've never heard her give a really full-blown rationale for why she wants to be president, other than, it's my turn. And I'm not sure that's good enough for Americans. Now, Democrats have stuck with her, I think, because there's no realistic alternative, including Bernie Sanders. They don't think she's honest. They don't like her. Her favorables are down. They don't trust her. But by golly, I'm going to vote for her. So to me, that's kind of a fragile support. But I don't see on the horizon anybody with the kind of charm that could catch her or pass her by. So I agree with you. Her goal tonight is to not lose, but to do that, she's got to go on offense. You can't just sit back and do rope-a-dope like Muhammad Ali. She's got to go on offense, and she will go on offense against the Republicans, not
right.
the other
Yes.
people on stage.
Yeah, I mean, for her, I mean, especially for her, right? To start picking at the other people on stage is to bring herself down to their polling level. I don't want to say, well, actually, with Hillary, it's to bring herself down to their level. I mean, she would be amongst the hoi polloi rather than again amongst the elite, where she very clearly believes herself to be. She's not going to go after Martin O'Malley. Martin O'Malley's at 0.89% in the polls. She's not going to pick apart Martin O'Malley's record in Maryland. She's not going to pick apart, Jim Webb's record in the Senate, because it's immaterial, right? She doesn't need to kneecap those guys. All she needs to do is make sure that they don't kneecap her. And so, she's going to be going after Republicans. I mean, if she doesn't say the name Donald Trump in one form or another at least a half dozen times tonight, then whoever her debate coach is should be fired. I mean, that's what she's got to focus on.
You're right. She's going to be waving her hand a lot about the Republican war on everything, mainly women, ladies, women, females. There's a Republican war on every single one of them in one way or another. I don't know whether the audience is allowed to clap, but those are guaranteed applause lines for her on the stump.
Yep.
It's something that the other people on the stage cannot disagree with. Donald Trump has announced that he will be live tweeting the Democrat debate, so he's really got a handle on the media and how to play them. So there will be, I'm sure, media people watching his Twitter stream for pithy comments, unlike you and I, not pithy.
Yeah, well, we try to be pithy, but you know how that works. We're not going to do that today, by the way, folks, but we often try to be pithy, but folks here know that, trying is one thing, accomplishing is something entirely different when it comes to Andrew and I. But and unfortunately, the debate formats that you have in these things kind of require you to be pithy. Now, that's the other thing, too. There's only 5 people on stage and really only 2 people in whom voters are interested in this stage. Again, the other 3 people combined have less than 3% of any of the polling that you've seen over the last month. I was actually looking this up in the RCP average. They're all below 1% on the average. And Lincoln Chafee, for instance, has come up with 0% in 8 of the last 12 polls. I mean, he hasn't registered in 8 of the last 12 polls, and the other ones he's only gotten 1%. The other 4 he's only gotten 1%. So,
and they're Dinos.
Right,
Democrats
exactly.
In name only.
Yeah, I mean, both Jim Webb and Lincoln Chafee have something in common. They were both Republicans at one point in time. So, which you can't accuse Bernie Sanders of that.
Well, you can accuse him of not being a Democrat.
and you'd still be right. He's not a Dino. He's not even maybe he's an Eno. He's just in name only. I mean, I don't know.
Sino.
Yeah, Sino. Socialist in name only, because he's running as a Democrat this year. Look, who do you think? Who do you think in that bottom 3 people have the best opportunity for a breakout tonight?
Well, O'Malley, I think. They're all ciphers to most people who will be watching. I don't, they're not going to get anywhere near. CNN isn't the 23 million they got for the Republican debate or the 24/6 that Fox got for its GOP debate. So all of them are 0, like you point out, and so they can each make some impact. I'm not sure that it matters. They have so far to go, and the people who support Hillary have shown that they're going to stick with her no matter what. I just don't think that Bernie is a realistic alternative. So a lot of people like Bernie. He got not quite as much money as she did last quarter, but he did get a fair chunk. This reminds me very much of Eugene McCarthy back in the Vietnam War era, or John Anderson running as third party, and McCarthy, and that's of course McCarthy's success on the anti-war platform is what lured Bobby Kennedy into the race. and then we lost him in the Ambassador Hotel. But
Yeah.
it's I don't think any of those three. They may, it'll probably help their speaking fees for the next year or two if they can have some kind of an impact. And maybe they think of themselves as auditioning if Hillary does win for some kind of job in the in another Clinton. Oh God, I hate to say that, in another Clinton administration. And Bill Clinton will not be at the debate. He's in Vegas, but he will not be at the debate. ABC News revealed in an exclusive report.
Where's he going to be? What's he doing if he's not at the debate?
Well, somebody on Twitter said that he was in Vegas. He wasn't going to the debate, but he was pressing the flesh. And I said, "Oh, be careful there."
That's a bad idea. It's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I got this image when you say this, right? I got this image. Did you ever see the movie Coal Miner's Daughter about Loretta Lynn, Sissy Spacek,
No.
Tommy Lee Jones? It's really a great movie. If you've never seen it, you should watch it because it is one of the best biography films of all time. Especially about the music industry. But there's this one scene in the movie after Loretta Lynn's first visit to the Grand Ole Opry, and her husband, Dew, isn't at the Grand Ole Opry. He's across the street in a bar listening to it, and he gets in a bar fight. And I'm kind of imagining that this is something like what you're telling me about Bill Clinton not being there. It's sort of like Doolittle Lynn in the bar across the street from the stage where his wife is performing at that particular moment. So if you haven't seen,
well, it is tough in reality. It's especially tough on the wives. Obviously not tough on the husband for Hillary, but tough on the wives because they're there for moral support, and I know the candidates do look out in the audience, and the wives give them little thumbs up and smiles and attaboys and all that stuff. But it's really tough for them because they have to be nice. Barbara Bush, when Laura Bush's husband announced for the candidacy, Barbara Bush told her that when you get to the debates, the first thing you do is go over and introduce yourself to the other wives, which she then did religiously, so that you kind of break the ice, and you be the one that breaks the ice. Since when Laura Bush was doing it, her husband was the front runner. As he was most of the time, although he got his butt kicked in New Hampshire.
In New Hampshire, yeah.
I remember that the morning of the New Hampshire primary, having breakfast, and the first exit polls came in, and Karl Rove was reading them, and I said, "Well, how's it look?" And he looked at me and said, "Eat your breakfast." I said, "Oh." That bad? And he said, worse than that. And at that point, Bush was down 15 points, but I think he lost eventually by 19. So they had a meeting overnight, and the next day on the plane, and Bush and the team decided they were going to take the gloves off in South Carolina, which they did. But McCain won New Hampshire the way you win New Hampshire. John Kasich is doing that. I think Carly Fiorina is doing it. So we'll see how successful they are. Hillary, she's behind in New Hampshire badly. And Sanders is from next door. He talks like a New Englander, and next door Vermont. And I don't think Sanders would go over too well in Iowa, but who knows? He might give her a run there.
Actually, I think Sanders is better positioned in Iowa. Well, is a better type of candidate in Iowa than Hillary is. I mean, Sanders is all about, economic populism. I mean, it certainly is about socialism, but I mean, you got Tom Harkin, who did pretty well
right.
as a quasi-socialist in Iowa for the same reason, is because it's a populist sort of philosophy. So, Hillary is notoriously weak in Iowa, and if she loses Iowa and New Hampshire, which is looking like it might, New Hampshire certainly looks like it might happen, but if she can't close the deal in Iowa or New Hampshire, you know, you might be looking at a Bernie Sanders nomination.
She's in real trouble, but less trouble than she would be if there was a viable alternative.
Yeah, well, and
there isn't. I mean, the Democrats, they love what Bernie says. They love what he stands for. They want to tax people more. They want a bigger government. They're all for it. But you're just not going to elect a 75-year-old guy to the White House. Yeah. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. A 75-year-old person doesn't belong in the White House.
So I mean, I'm curious about this particular point. Joe Biden's 72. He'll be almost 74 on election day, right? Because he turns 73.
No, he's 73 now.
Oh, is he 73 now? Okay, so yeah. He'll be 74 next year. Sanders is going to be 75, like you said.
Hillary in 12 days. She's turning 68.
68, right? So let's say Hillary, for whatever reason, just collapses, has to pull out of the race, whatever it is, regardless whether it's the email server, whatever, is just simply not cutting it. She drops out. Bernie Sanders, you say, is not a viable alternative. Joe Biden probably isn't either, although I don't know that anybody's told Joe Biden that. So who then steps up? Mr. 0.89% Martin O'Malley? I mean, who else is going to step up into that slot if it's not Bernie Sanders?
I just, I'll tell you what, I was so sure that Bill Clinton would have to quit so many times, and he didn't. I don't see Hillary ever quitting. Even if she got indicted on, which is not going to happen, but if she got indicted on something, well, that's to be determined. And stretch that baby out, and let her people come and vote for her. She should do well in South Carolina. I just don't think. I mean, she's like a pit bull when it concerns herself. I just don't see her ever quitting.
Oh, okay. I
guess. Do you seriously? I mean, you look at it. You look at what Bill Clinton did in the Oval Office, or had done, and you say, "Well, there's no way." And then lying to a grand jury. There's no way that a president can survive, but he did.
Yeah, but he was already president too. There's an inertia that goes.
He was already president. Yeah. Well, I mean that. President, that just makes it worse as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, no,
president lying to a grand jury.
Morally, I completely agree with you. But I think if she got indicted, and granted that's a very much a long shot, but if she got indicted, I think she'd have to pull out. I think she'd be in the same position that Rick Perry was in. Even if the indictment wasn't going to stick, which I don't think it's going to with Rick Perry either. I think she'd be in that same position, and you'd have Democrats starting to tell her, "You got to get out of this thing, because we're not going to put somebody who's indicted at the top of the Democratic Party ticket, for that to be our history for all time. We nominated somebody who was under indictment for corruption."
So they go to Philadelphia and have a brokered convention, I guess.
Yeah, maybe, and maybe that's just the solution at that point. Be total disaster for the Democrats if that's what happened, but maybe that's the solution. If it comes down to that, is just let it go down.
And don't count on the Republicans not committing suicide. You remember?
Good point.
You remember the Life of Brian with the kamikaze squad, the Japanese suicide squad. Everybody's getting crucified, and the suicide squad comes over the hill, cheering, and everybody thinks they're going to be rescued, and the suicide squad comes down to the base of the crosses and commits suicide.
Yeah, that was.
I mean, to me, that's what the Republicans could very well do. I mean, they're doing it in the House now. We have this rebellion against John Boehner. Oh, we don't have an alternative. But boy, it sure felt good to beat him up. Okay, now what? I mean, it's insane. It's stupid, but it's not beneath or above them to pull something like that off.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. But we're going to have to probably wrap this up here, Andrew. By the way, just to let people know, we're going to be off next week because I'll be out of the country. Actually, as it turns out, I'm on vacation. So we'll be back in 2 weeks from today, which would be the 27th of October. So you get a week off. What are you going to do with the week off?
I'll be darned. Gee whiz. And I just set my tweet for reminding people next Tuesday. I'll have to change that.
Sorry about that.
So we've got jokes. We got Seth
jokes.
Seth Meyers had a really good week. He said for Columbus Day, in honor of Christopher Columbus, I went into a grocery store and got lost looking for spices. And he also said North Korea held a military parade celebrating the 70th anniversary of its Communist Party. People at the parade called the event amazing and mandatory.
True story.
And finally, Myers said the White House released Michelle Obama's Spotify playlist. It included Beyonce, Demi Lovato, and Esperanza Spalding. And Joe Biden's playlist was, now that's what I call Train Sounds, Volume 12.
Well, you know, he was when he first came to Washington, there was actually some pretty good music going on out there, and that's probably the last time he actually listened to it. So there you go. Maybe he's got the Osmonds and the Jackson 5 and the Hillside Singers. That's probably what's on his. Assuming that Joe Biden knows what Spotify is.
Dan Fogelberg.
Dan Fogelberg for the win, people. Absolutely. Dan, God bless him, Fogelberg. The late Dan Fogelberg, we should say, but God bless Dan Fogelberg. I could sing the whole Dan Fogelberg catalog, but you don't want to sit around and listen to that. That was just
no, I sure don't. I can't stand that. I'm sorry.
All right, well, Andrew, we're gonna let you off the hook this time only. But you can find Andrew Malcolm's work at investors.com/Andrew Malcolm. And by the way, you should be reading all of the editorial side of investors.com. They got some great editorial folks over there. You got Michael Ramirez, whose new book is going to be coming out at the end of the month. And so keep an eye out for that. And of course, you can find Andrew on Twitter because he is the prince of Twitter at
That's
AH
right.
Malcolm.
Don't you forget it.
Don't forget it. By the way, if you follow Andrew on Twitter, and you know, everybody who's in this chat room should really already be following Andrew on Twitter. But if you're not, you can follow Andrew on Twitter and you can get some of these jokes every single day because he's the curator of late night TV jokes. And
That's right.
He's got them all, folks. He's got them all. All right, Andrew. Well, I'm going to be enjoying Italy for the next couple of weeks.
Have a wonderful, wonderful trip, and leave some pasta for Connie and I.
Yep, we'll leave a little bit behind for you, but you got to come there pretty quick and get it while it lasts, man. It's you never know when they're going to run out of pasta in Italy. It's a really tricky situation.
Have a wonderful, wonderful time. We'll be thinking about you.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Andrew Malcolm of investors.com/Andrew Malcolm and the Prince of Twitter. Thanks for being with me today, sir.
You bet.
Okay, folks, we're going to go ahead and move on to Salena Zito. You're going to hear me dial her up. We're also going to talk to Salena about the Pittsburgh Steelers because, you know, that was a pretty awesome game last night. I mean, how many of you guys actually saw the Steelers game last night? You know that if I'm talking about it, good things must have happened. And it was really iffy down there to the end. And as it turned out, it shouldn't have been quite so iffy because apparently they screwed the clock up in the last 3 minutes of the game.
It's Salena.
Salena Zito, how are you today?
Oh, just living a dream. How about you?
Living the dream. I'm thrilled to death that the Pittsburgh Steelers scored in the last 5 seconds of the game, which should have been the last 23 seconds of the game. Have you seen this story today?
Yes.
They screwed up the clock. They actually should have had 23 seconds left when that play ran, which would have made a whole bunch of difference about what play they called. It worked out okay.
It worked out fine.
Which
has not been, you know, sort of the Steelers plan action this year. Nothing's really worked out fine.
No.
But I mean, you had one job, clock watcher. That's to watch the clock.
Right. And when there's a touchback on a kickoff, don't start the clock. I mean, it's not difficult. Don't start the clock when they take the field the next time. The clock stays at where it's at until the ball is snapped. For some reason, they didn't get that quite right. Nobody noticed it. Nobody on the Pittsburgh Steelers sideline noticed it. And so they had to they had to score in the last 5 seconds. Turned out to be very exciting. Le'Veon Bell over the tackle, managed to just barely get in, and it's a good thing he did because time was out by the time he actually scored the touchdown. But I was jumping up and down. I was pretty excited last night. I thought it was pretty awesome. And then I thought I got to get
to raise the Jolly Roger, but we lost, so I couldn't do that.
Well, it's we're 3-2. We only have to get through a couple more games before Roethlisberger comes back, and we start winning these games again. So Michael Vick did just enough to win last night, and if he can keep doing that and hand off to Le'Veon Bell, we should be in pretty good shape. So
it was a pretty fantastic ending to the game. The rest of the game,
And you know what was the best part of that? Is that I went 6-0 on my NFL predictions again. I'm now like 28-4 this season against Jazz Shaw, who didn't do as well on the NFL
That's
picks.
pretty sick, actually. That's really great.
Yeah, it's the best start to the season, and of course now I'm going to take 2 Sundays off because I'm traveling, but that's okay. I can rest on my half laurel, I think, at this point in time and be pretty happy about it. So, all right. So you had a great column up this past weekend about something you and I have been talking about.
Oh, my story on Sunday? The column or the story? The
story.
door-to-door story?
The story. The story on the RNC and their dry run for 2016. Now, you and I have talked about this sometimes on the air and sometimes just, between the two of us about what the RNC is doing to prepare for the 2016 election. So tell us a little bit about what this was about, what the RNC is doing here in October.
Well, the RNC picked, I forget, wait, let me look at how many states they picked. It's Pennsylvania, Ohio, Colorado, Florida, North Carolina, Michigan, Virginia, Nevada, New Hampshire, and Wisconsin. These are not only important battleground states to get enough electoral votes to swing over to whoever the presidential nominee is, but they also have some important Senate races in them as well, which gives the Republicans the ability to hold on to the Senate where they hold the majority currently, but that could flip because they have much more states to defend than the Democrats do. So what they're doing is basically implementing in November the volunteers, the technology, the maps, the message, and they're testing the capacity to see how well it works on Election Day. They're going to see if the volunteers are effective, if they're able to get the voters out, if they're able to get the right voters out. They're going to see if their peer-to-peer programs that they have used in their 10 just like a 10 square block radius each volunteer gets, and you go out and you sort of interconnect with your neighbors in a way that is very similar to the way we used to communicate as opposed to today's technology. But they implement that technology as well, and so this is to see how the voter turnout is. Do their volunteers work? Does so that they don't have what happened in 2012, which was a complete collapse of the Romney efforts to get their sort of get out the vote apparatus to work. It just didn't work, and so the RNC has put this in place, and they're not just in reliable Republican areas. These are in the areas that Reince Priebus, the chairman of the party, has really worked hard in Hispanic neighborhoods and in Black neighborhoods and in minority neighborhoods, and with millennials to get these voters out. And I think it's sort of brilliant, especially because of, if you look in a state like Pennsylvania, where the Cook Report has said it is now a toss-up state, and it's never been considered a toss-up state this early on before a presidential election. And, there's the very important Supreme Court races this fall. And if you didn't know, Supreme Court majority is the one that controls how the lines are drawn when it comes to gerrymandering and redistricting.
Right.
So holding a Republican majority is incredibly important in terms of retaining the Republican legislature. They have the majority House and Senate in the state, in the state chambers. That's important to retain that. You need to have that majority.
Right. I mean, this is the type of thing that usually the local parties deal with, right? I mean, this is
right.
This is normally a local party sort of thing. And then when you're talking about national elections, we're talking about senatorial campaigns and presidential campaigns, and that could be in either type of cycle, right? Either a midterm cycle or a presidential cycle. Usually it's left up to the candidates to do this type of work. The RNC provides the RNC and the DNC provide different types of support, but they don't usually do the ground stuff. This time the RNC is doing the ground stuff, and that's an interesting choice, especially in a presidential year.
Right. And I was there in March of 2013, right after, a couple months after Romney lost, 2 months after the president is sworn in again, and Priebus did this sort of autopsy report.
Wait a minute, Salena. You have to say it properly. Now, you have to have a kind of like a Boris Karloff accent. The autopsy. The autopsy.
I don't have a Boris Karloff voice.
Hey, you got to work on it
for Halloween season.
You got to work on it.
Nonetheless,
the autopsy.
This was part of. They spent 3 days. I think I was in North Carolina. I can't even remember. Yes, North Carolina, just sort of fleshing this out and what they needed to do, and and he was adamant about not being basically a bank that everybody comes to 3 months or 2 months before the election cycle, get some money, parachute some people in who don't know the districts, don't know the people, don't know the lifestyle, and try to convince people to show up. I mean, he was like, that doesn't work. This is proven not to work. And we have to do something more like Howard Dean's 50-state program, where we're part of the community all the time. And so he's really doubled up, tripled up, and quadrupled up the staffing in these states. And these staffing are year-round. They're not just there in election years. They're part of the community. They interact with people. They ask them questions. They engage with them on social media. They engage with them peer-to-peer, face-to-face. And it's a whole different world. And it's I think, really interesting to see how they pull this off. And in November, but also, it appears to me that they actually understand that there will be lessons to be learned. There's going to be stakes that are going to be made in this fall, and they'll be able to work them out by election the following year.
Well, and what this does, before I get there, let's do a little background. First off, this is the type of thing that the Obama campaign was doing since they launched in January 2007. This was the effort. That was the money. That was where the money was going for Obama. It's one of the reasons why Obama was very happy not to stay within the presidential, what was it used to be called? The Presidential Campaign Fund. Remember when Obama was pledging to stay within that and he bailed out of it? The reason why was because he was building this large organization, and he wanted to use as much funding as he possibly could get for it to build this type of organization. It was a candidate-centered organization, though, and it still exists, but it exists as Organizing for America now. And the question is to whether, to what purpose this organization will be put in 2016. But this is not a new concept.
No, it's not a new concept, and Priebus was really direct about this, right? He's like, look, I saw the beginnings of this with Dean. I saw how well it worked in 2006 and in 2008 and escalated in 2012. We have to get on board. And we not only have to get on board, we have to surpass it.
When the first time I saw this type of thing, and it didn't occur to me until not long ago, but it was in Canada. It was in Quebec, actually, of all places. And this was maybe one of the big stories that I ever was involved in, Salena, and because it turned out so badly. I don't know. Not too many people here anymore remember the what was called ad scam in Canada. And you remember it, okay?
Yeah.
But basically, what the issue
because we're elderly.
Well, because I was involved in it too, but I mean, but yeah, because we're elderly. AdScam was in 2004 and 2005, and what the deal was with AdScam was, Quebec has had a long-standing separatist movement. That people want Quebec to break free from the Canadian Union and be its own country, and this is this ongoing thing that it's ongoing political undercurrent in Canada. It's always been there, and it ebbs and it waxes and it wanes, I think is a better way of putting it. And at this particular point, it was waxing. It was in the early 2000s, and it was starting to become a problem in Canada. And the Labour Party, who was in charge of the government, put together a program that would make Quebec feel more like they were part of the Canadian Union. And what they were doing was they were creating community events, or they were sponsoring community events, and yay Canada, we're all one big happy union sort of thing. And they would have people at these events, and they would press the flesh, and they would talk to the people in Quebec and find out what it is that they wanted, and try to, all of that is good, right? All of that is, they're really trying to engage at a ground level, at a granular level, getting into the neighborhoods. And that's what this program was supposed to be. It's called the sponsorship program, was the official name for this policy.
Right.
The problem became is when the Labour Party decided, you know what, we're sending out a whole bunch of money in contracts. Why don't we see if we can scoop some of it back up into our own pockets? And they started.
Then it became a mess.
Then it became an issue, right? They started embezzling out of this program, and they started hiring contractors that were using the money to do stuff for the Labour Party rather than doing stuff for the sponsorship program. That was AdScam, but the model that they were using was very similar to what you saw with the Obama campaign. They would go into the neighborhoods and they would have, pizza parties, or they'd sponsor some sort of block party so that they could get out and get everybody out of their houses and shake their hands and see who they were, and put them on lists and follow up with, targeted, very hyper local arguments for the Obama campaign. And the same thing that the sponsorship program was supposed to do in Canada, until the Labour Party decided that they wanted the cash for themselves. That type of model is a proven model. I mean,
absolutely.
AdScam aside, it actually did work in Quebec. It actually lowered the temperature on the separatist movement, and it's down to a dull roar again.
Right.
Because they were engaging people, they're making feel like we have a stake in the Canadian Union. So the bigger takeaway from this, though, is that the Republican Party is not waiting around to see who the candidate is before they start building this organization. They're keeping it separate from the candidate for now, so that whoever the nominee is can take advantage of this thing. Right.
I mean, it's smart. It's the part of the future. I mean, Reince was right. The days of just being a bank and doling out money were over. They needed to be part of turning people out, and part of implementing that, and part of engaging the community. And he also was like, we can't just drop in DC strategist into people's neighborhoods. It has to be a buy-in from the people that live there.
Exactly.
For it to work. So, and I think I'm really interested to see, sort of the day after, or the couple days after. Did it have an impact in elections, in turnout? In Pennsylvania, that could be incredibly important in this state, especially when redistricting's sort of on the line, and it can also test to see which part of the state is becoming more powerful in turnout. Is it the more liberal Philadelphia and the collar counties, or is the center and the West Coast, the Pittsburgh area, the more moderate to conservative part of the state, starting to wield more power? It has proven to do that in the past couple of election cycles. Where, if it continues to grow, we'll just have to see.
Yeah, Andrew Malcolm just emailed us because he's listening to the conversation. He says, basically, this is Chicago World Politics 101, which is true.
Yeah.
But and Republicans
true.
and Republicans do this on a local level. That's the thing, right? The autopsy made a point of this, which now I have to do Boris Karloff every single time. That was the point. Republicans can succeed at doing this on the local and state levels, which is the reason why the legislatures have all changed over to Republican legislation.
931 seats.
Exactly.
The Democrats have lost in the past 7 years.
Exactly. So they know how to do it. They just haven't done it in, certainly in presidential elections and sometimes in statewide elections and midterm cycles. They haven't done it very well. So this is just kind of learning that Chicago ward politics 101 thing all the way up the chain, which hasn't happened in a long time.
Right. I mean, there's no better flattery than to steal somebody's idea, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. There's this imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and therefore copyright infringement is the best compliment you'll ever get, I guess. Plagiarism is the best compliment you'll ever get. So there you go.
No.
Yeah, we're not endorsing that, by the way, at all. Do not. Bad. Otherwise, we'll be talking about the autopsy of your career. So there you go.
So we had a photographer follow a group of people around different parts of the different counties. And while I wasn't there with her, she said the people responded well, and they talked, they engaged with the people that went around. So I'm looking forward to see what sort of the end result is in November. Not just in Pennsylvania, but in all these other sort of high target point states that can make that will make the difference in 2016, not only for the presidential but also the majority in the Senate.
Yes,
and it's also kind of interesting, like OFA, Organizing for America, which was Obama for America. You never hear about them anymore. You have to wonder if how many of those emails that they have are still, reachable. Are they reliable? Are there not? I'm signed up as part of OFA. I don't receive emails anymore, except maybe once every 3 months asking for money.
Yeah.
And they took sort of all the steam and all the power and all the organization, decentralized it away from the DNC and into their sort of umbrella. And so I don't know what the capabilities of the National Party is for the Democrats right now, and I also don't know that it matters. I'm certain that Hillary's team, who is still, despite all the misgivings, the presumptive nominee, I don't know what kind of largesse they have built. I did talk with some of their staffers beforehand, and they seemed to be building a list of mega proportions. That was a year ago. I doubt that they've stopped doing that, But
well, true.
Are they testing it out? That's another question. I actually think this is really smart to test it out.
I think so, too. I mean, it may tip the hand a little bit, but I don't think any of this is a state secret at this point anymore. Anyway, they laid it all out in the autopsy, and everybody knew that they were going to be doing this. I mean, this is not a secret, and it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. Salena,
well, in 2009, 2010, 2011, you saw OFA out there doing stuff to see what was going on in off-year elections. And they didn't have much success unless Obama's name was on the top of the ballot.
Yeah,
look at those off-year elections. Look at 09, look 10, look at 14. But I'm really curious to see what is left of this organization.
Well, Salena, we're going to have to wrap it up there, but you can find Salena Zito at the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. That's triblive.com. She's also at Real Clear Politics, realclearpolitics.com. And you can find her on Twitter at Salena Zito Trib. Salena, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And now we are going to be joined by Matthew Taylor and Alan Peterson. I'm not sure who we have on the line first.
Hey, it's Matthew Taylor.
Matthew, okay. So we got Matthew Taylor on the line. He's the director of Los I'm going to say this.
Los Abandonados.
Abandonados. Thank you. For some reason, I knew I had this mental block about that, Matthew. And I think Alan Peterson, the producer of the film, is on the line with us. Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having us on. This is great.
Well, I appreciate it. And Alan just missed me absolutely butchering the name of this film, Los Abandonados. I knew I was going to have this mental block about saying this, and of course it came up.
You pronounced it a lot better than we did as we got started because, Matthew and neither one of us speak Spanish.
I don't speak much Spanish either. I don't speak hardly any Spanish at all, and I grew up in Southern California, so I have no excuse. But so this is a documentary about it's a ghastly story about Alberto Nisman, who is a Argentinian prosecutor, delving into a terror attack in 1994 at a Jewish cultural center in Buenos Aires, and he uncovered evidence of a cover-up in Argentina about ties to Iran to this attack, and Nisman himself was murdered not long afterwards. Right. I mean, this is he was a brave man for doing this, Matthew.
Well, that's one of the things that really stood out to me as we started looking into the story was the fact that, given the Argentina situation, I mean, corruption every which way you look and everything, and the only way that people, get through that is by being corrupt themselves. But as we got looking more into Alberto Nisman, he's not a saint, but he was absolutely committed to finding justice for the 85 victims of that 1994 bombing, who at the time he got involved, for 10 years, no one had been brought to trial, no one had been accused, nothing had happened. I mean, can you imagine if 10 years after 9/11, we're still all standing around going, we don't have any idea who this was.
Yeah.
That would have been the effect.
And Alan, I mean, what drew you into this story? What drew you to the Nisman story and the story of the 1994 bombing?
Well, Matthew, first of all, drew me into it. I've worked with Matthew on several projects, and I've learned that when Matthew says, hey, what about this? What do you think of this idea? That I need to take it seriously because he's got a really good story sense. So he sent me a couple of links to articles about Alberto Nisman's death back in January. And I'd seen a couple of headlines about it, but had not researched it. So he sent me those articles, and I started reading. And as you start reading the information, it's like the most bizarre film noir story with twists and turns and ups and downs. And every time you turn a page or read an article, you go, "You have got to be kidding me! You can't write this stuff." So there was just clearly this intrigue about it. But then, the more that I think that we got into it, we realized that this really was a human story about, as I mentioned, 85 victims, innocent people, who just going about their business of the day were horrifically murdered by terrorists. And then finally, victim number 86, Alberto Nisman, the man who was trying to find justice for them, tragically, mysteriously killed when he's on the brink of finding justice. So that was my feeling about it. Matthew has a little bit different take on it. But so Matthew, why don't you try and explain that a little?
Yeah, I mean, this story was so bizarre. It started as almost as a headline. You're looking at the headline, you start digging in. But the other thing that's interesting is as we're making the film, it's unfolding in real time. I mean, we're working on a film, and then the police footage comes out. Or we're working on the film, and then they fire the medical board. And so there was a lot of things that were actually happening as we're making the actual film. I think Carlos Menem was supposed to be on trial, on August 9th or something. So there was just a lot of things from things he did many years ago connected to Mr. Nisman. So there was a real time aspect to the film that was extremely intriguing narratively, and also what it represented in a larger sense with things that are happening now, with Iran and the nuclear deal and all these things. And we started the film before any of this was in play, and we didn't know. But it seems to be lining up quite quite well, actually.
Well, I mean, and this has been part of the criticism of the nuclear deal, is that it does nothing to curtail Iran's pursuit of terror as a means of controlling other areas, controlling other nations, and in fact, arguably makes that a lot easier for them, because the economic benefits of this deal is going to put a lot of cash in their pockets, both immediately and over the long term, Alan. And so,
absolutely.
So I mean,
it is something that we discovered, as Matthew mentioned, that bears on today's interactions with Iran. Just yesterday or today, the headlines, Iran saying, "Oh yeah, we'll sign the deal, but you know what? We're not going to do this part of it, this part of it, this part of it." And this goes right in line with what Alberto Nisman learned and the people of Argentina learned, and that is that you can't do deals with Iran. Nobody, find me an example of anybody who's done successful deals with Iran in the past. And what Nisman alleges and what he believes he discovered, and what was one of the most upsetting parts about this, I believe, for him, was the understanding, as he saw it, that the bombing in '94 was related to Argentina cutting off nuclear materials and expertise to Iran at the time. And then him discovering that it looked in his mind that Argentina and the present administration was trying to reap benefits from Iran by reinvigorating that exchange of nuclear material, expertise, knowledge, all in the midst of this era where President Obama is trying to cut a deal with the Iranians. And here is Argentina saying, you know what, we'll supply them with what they need. We can do what we want to with them. And so it makes everything that we're seeing in the headlines about this Iran deal moot, because Iran is finding other ways to get whatever it is they want and need.
As long as they can get the IAEA and the U.S. and the EU out of the way with alleviating the sanctions.
Look, they don't care.
Right.
They don't care.
They don't care about
those other organizations, because they know that they're impotent. They know that they've given away the farm.
Yeah.
There's no way that any of those organizations and nation states, as you just mentioned, can genuinely know what is going on in Iran, and Iran knows it.
Matthew, what was the? Certainly, Nisman was saying that there were connections, or that there were cover-ups within the Kirchner government of what had happened in Argentina with vis-a-vis Iran. What was it that you discovered? And I don't want you to give away the whole film, by the way. We have to maintain at least a little bit of mystery so we get people to watch this.
Yeah.
Thing. But I mean, how fruitful was that line of inquiry in your documentary?
Well, I mean, I think what makes it stick out, or kind of like pivoted, what drew Nisman's attention, was after President Nestor Kirchner died, and she did a 180 on their foreign policy, and with the memorandum of understanding of the United Nations. And so basically she turns around and says, "Hey, Nisman, that 9 years of investigation you've been doing, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. We have the memorandum of understanding. You can go to Tehran and interview the people who you think are guilty," which, by the way, he had a fatwa on his head at the time. So it's basically a death sentence. So these are the kinds of things where it all changed. This 2012, 2013 period of time, where everything, up was down, left was right. I mean, everything had changed, and Nisman felt betrayed by the government. Right,
right.
He spent all of his time. He worked super hard to get red notices placed by Interpol, and he was closing in on these guys. He was making real progress. And one day, the president comes out and goes, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. We have an understanding. And he goes, really? So that's kind of, I think that's the point. That's the moment where everything changed for him.
And he continued to pursue it, and this is where it looks like he was putting his life at risk in doing so.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think he knew it. I think he really knew it.
You think that he knew it was going to be coming at some point?
I do. And this is more just a personal sense that I got from it, and so I may be reading more into it than there is there, but I get the sense that he was such a smart individual, really sharp. Everyone agrees that he was a brilliant attorney, and at some point he would have had to know how dangerous this was going to become. He clearly knew it was dangerous for his family. He was very concerned about his two daughters. And at some point, I think he had to look in the mirror and say, I may not get out of this alive. But even so, he went forward to the point where he issues a 300-page indictment against the president of his country, the foreign minister, other cabinet ministers, and then is willing to say publicly in front of their Congress, here's all my evidence. This is why I made these claims. And it was the night before he was to do that where he was found murdered in his apartment. I say murdered. I mean, they're allegedly, whatever. I think it's clear from our investigation that one of the things we didn't even put in the film, we just didn't have time for, the bullet wound in the back of his head was behind his right ear at an angle going from low to high. And Neeson was left-handed.
Oh my gosh!
If he was going to commit suicide, to do what he did, I mean, it just makes no sense. And why would he have done it right-handed? Just all kinds of things like that. So I say yes, he was murdered.
Well, I think it's reasonable to conclude under the totality of the circumstances here that this was very likely to be a murder. And I remember when this happened, we were writing about it quite a bit at the time, that it was likely to have been a murder. It doesn't surprise me that they were trying to call it a suicide, but this was a guy whose life was building up to a particular point that was going to be reached the very next day. So it doesn't, suicide doesn't quite actually make a whole lot of sense under those circumstances, Alan. So I'm kind of with you on that. Matthew, you went to Argentina. You were conducting all these interviews. Did you get a sense that people were reluctant to put themselves in Niesmann's position by talking about this publicly?
Yes, there was a general. I mean, I think down there, this is a very serious and grave situation. So anybody, the people in our film are brave. They are. They believe in something, in justice, and there is a fear. We had one person in the film who said she was afraid to take a car because they could blow the car up. I mean, it's things like that. I mean, we don't hear things like this in the United States. We don't, the extent of corruption and rot that underpins, the Argentinian culture is on a level that we can't even begin to understand. So, these people stepped out and said what they thought, and we gave them a platform the best we could.
Right. Now, Alan, when is this film coming out? How can people see this film? And, what can people do to spread the word about it?
The film is available right now. They can go to losabandonados.movie.com or just do a Google search for Los Abandonados, the movie.
We have it, by the way, we have the link in the show post too, Alan. I'm sorry, say that again? We have the link in the show post. I should mention that to people who are watching this. Right. We have the link in the show post, so be sure to go back to the show post. The link is there to the losabandonados.movie.com. See, I said it again right. The first time was just practice.
Be a consultant for us on the next one.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alan. Continue on.
So it's available for rent and purchase on Vimeo and on Televideo, and that's all accessible through the website. So if you go to that, you'll see the splash page, landing page with the trailer for the film, and then you can either look at it in English, Spanish, or Portuguese. And versions of those films are all available. There are links on the site where you can purchase to rent those. And then we'll most likely be doing some additional screenings here in the U.S. That's also kind of playing out right now.
So keep an eye out on the website again to see if there's going to be a screening near you. I would imagine if you're around a major city like Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, you might see a screening for this at some point in the future. So just keep your eyes open. Is there a sign up list where people can get email updates on this as well?
I believe on the website, you can sign up for communications with us. I believe that's the case. I have not looked in the last few days, so I'm not exactly sure on that. I'm trying to think the best way. As we start doing screenings, there are rumors right now kicking around a New York screening in the not too distant future.
There you go.
We will be flooding the media with it, and you'll be able to find it. And it will, of course, be linked on the website. So if you want to check back to the website every once in a while,
also I think
they'll be able to find that information there.
Yeah, I believe you got a Facebook page there too, so you can like the Facebook page.
That's correct.
There's a Twitter account. You can follow
Yep.
the Twitter account.
Yep.
All right, so Matthew, what's your final takeaway from this? What do people need to know when they start watching this? What is it that you're hoping that they're moved to do?
Well, after learning all the things we've learned and after making this film and digging deeper, this is a roadmap for how this is what happens when you deal with Iran. This is it. This is how it plays out. If you make a deal with Iran, this is how they do business. So if you want to know where all the roads lead, watch our movie.
So basically, it's a gangster's thing.
Yeah.
So
that's it. Watch the movie, and you'll know. You'll know. You don't need to. You need to hypothesize how these deals play out. We have one. It happened, and this is the consequences of it. So,
Yeah, you can't say you weren't warned, folks. So definitely you want to say Los Abandonados, LosAbandonadosmovie.com. Matthew Taylor, Alan Peterson, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
It's a grim business, unfortunately, but it is a necessary story that has to be told, and hopefully people are going to start paying attention. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. I want to thank again Alan Peterson, Matthew Taylor from LosAbandonadosmovie.com. Be sure to check that out because it's important to make sure that we understand what we're getting into when we're doing deals with. It looks like somebody's calling me back. This is Ed, and nope, I think it was just a mistake. But I figured, what the heck? We're at the end of the show. I can take a stray phone call just in case. Anyway, I want to thank them both for being with us. That's a tough story to create a documentary around, and I haven't had a chance to watch it. I've watched the trailer, haven't had a chance to watch the film, but you can bet I'm going to at this point. It's a story that must be told. In fact, I want to really thank two people who are in the chat room today. Jeff Dunitz, at Yid with Lid on Twitter, JeffDunitz.com on the site, Fausta from FaustasBlog.com, at Fausta on Twitter for pushing out the message that we're going to be talking to these two gentlemen today. Thank you, because I think that that's an important thing for people to see, that there is that the Niesman story has not been forgotten and that there are important lessons to learn from it. So thanks for tweeting that out. All right. As far as the show goes, no show on Thursday. No show on Thursday. No show next week at all. I am on vacation starting Thursday morning. Woohoo! We're going to be traveling. We're going to be going out of the country. And we just want to make sure everybody knows that so they're not coming back around here. I'm going to come to what Cranky T-Rex says in just a moment because that's a funny story. Just want to make sure everybody knows that there's not going to be any shows until October 27th, and we'll come back with Andrew Malcolm at that point. Maybe I'll have some pictures from the vacation. We can play around with that and show you some pictures and all that kind of fun stuff. We'll see how that goes. One other announcement. By the way, you'll notice that I've updated the card here. Crown Forum is not sure when they're going to release Going Red. I originally had it up as April because that's what they had. And I am so not happy to take this call. Yes, Jeff.
There's a place in the world for a gambler. Let it shine. Well, you were talking Dan Fogelberg. You needed a song.
You got to turn down the volume on my show.
I'm gone. Have a good vacation.
All right, Jeff. Jeff Dunitz from JeffDunitz.com sharing his lovely voice with us. Thanks, Jeff.
Just want to make sure everybody knows that there's not going to be any shows until
Okay. Whenever you call into the radio station, you have to turn down the volume, guys. Don't forget that you have to turn down the volume. That's what you have to do. Jeff Dunitz. Crazy man. And he's got a post up on there. Rick too says every time I leave the country, something important happens. Anyway, I was going to talk about the book. If you put in a pre-order for the book, you might have gotten an email that said it's been delayed. We don't really know what the date exactly is yet that this thing is going to publish on. When Crown Forum listed it on Amazon.com, it was early April, which is what my understanding of this was. But now we're talking about other release dates. It may not come out until sometime in June. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that right now. I'll have more on that in November as to when the book is coming out. We're still talking through these things. We're still talking about what the cover is going to look like and all that kind of stuff. When I get that stuff and it's ready to roll out, we'll have all of it here on the show. But if you've gotten an email, if you've pre-ordered the book and you've gotten an email that says the release date has changed, nothing's changed. It just hasn't been set yet. Somebody went on the web, somebody went in Amazon and tinkered with the release date on it. Don't worry about it. The book's not delayed. We're just trying to find the right moment in time in which to publish it for maximum effect. And we're still having discussions about that. The book is done. It's done. It's only now we're just about trying to find the right moment at which to hit this thing. And we're going to have more on that as it comes out. So, and if you haven't pre-ordered the book, well, get on the stick. What's wrong with you guys? Pre-order it. You can find it on Amazon. I think the link is in the show post. Don't worry about the subtitle because that's changing too. But pre-order the book. Pre-order the book. And then Duke of the Dance. I got to hit this story just really quickly. Duke of the Dance said that next show that I have, I want to get Jennifer Lawrence on to talk about how she doesn't get paid enough. Jennifer Lawrence is saying that she's too nice. She's too worried about being nice. And she's lost money because she's not tough enough in negotiations because she's afraid that people are going to call her a spoiled or think of her as a spoiled brat. To which my response to this, because it was up on Twitter, which my response to that was, doesn't she have an agent? Isn't that what an agent is supposed to do? You don't have to be a spoiled brat. You get your agent to be cranky for you. And that's where you get the negotiations done. That's what an agent is for. And I'm pretty sure Jennifer Lawrence has an agent. I can't certify that at the moment. Maybe she does all her own negotiations, but if that's the case, then I think that's the issue and not the fact that she's a female vis-a-vis the males in her industry. So, but I'd be happy to have Jennifer Lawrence on to talk about this issue. I'd be happy to have Jennifer Lawrence come on anytime, even if she wants to chew me out. Come on over. Water's fine. And I don't pay anybody anything anyway, so. Jeremy Renner obviously has a fantastic agent, as well he should. He's a really good actor. Jeremy Renner, actually, they made a movie together, and that was American Hustle. I don't know if they've made any other movies together. I think they did. I can't think of it, but I know they made American Hustle together. Jeremy Renner and Jennifer Lawrence did. So Cranky T-Rex is also noting that she made the second most money of every actor in Hollywood last year, only beat out by Robert Downey Jr., who gets paid an awful lot of money. And I don't know, maybe he deserves it. Maybe none of them deserve it. It's a free market. If you can find a studio to pay you that much, God bless you, and go forward and earn the money. I feel the same way about athletes' salaries. They're getting the money because the people who pay those salaries think they're worth it. Vis-a-vis. There must be something to that. I'm a free market kind of guy. I'm not here to tell people that they need to restrict the amount of money they're paid. American Hustle is the one she was complaining about. She was pretty good in that movie. I mean, I didn't think she was that good in Hunger Games. I only saw the first Hunger Games because after the first one, I was like, yeah, no. But she was good in American Hustle. That actually was a pretty good movie. And she was very good in it. But, you know, she was a supporting actress. Amy Adams was actually the lead actress in that. And Christian Bale was the lead actor. And Bradley Cooper was the lead actor. I would consider Jennifer Lawrence supporting actress in that. So if she didn't make as much money as Christian Bale, it's because Christian Bale was the lead in the film. I don't really know specifically what she's complaining about. Anyway, again, I think it's the difference between getting 17 million and 20 million. And frankly, one payday like that would be sufficient for me. And I don't think I'd complain for the rest of my life. But that's just me. It's just me. All right. It's economies of scale. If 1 million people are willing to pay $10 to see you do something, well, cha-ching. That's exactly right. It's exactly right. And it's more than 1 million people who are willing to go see films like The Avengers. Not necessarily my cup of tea, but a lot of people want to go see a movie like that. Or American Hustle. I forget what it made, but I remember it got some pretty decent box office. And let's face it, you're making money based on whether you put butts in the seats. If you put butts in the seats, Robert Downey puts butts in the seats. Jennifer Lawrence probably does to some extent now, but at the time she probably didn't. And she was, you know, a little bit less of a known quality at that point in time. This is what you do. You get paid for your last performance, right? You don't get paid for your next performance. You get paid based on what your last performance was. So it's like writing books. You get the money based on what your previous book sold. That's what makes the contract. So Ed's irrational hatred of the Avengers continues. What can I say? I'm a terrible human being, Cranky T-Rex. Terrible human being. All right, well, we've stretched this out long enough. I want to thank everybody for being with us, especially Cranky T-Rex, who manages the chat room every single time. If you're having fun in the chat room, you should thank Cranky T-Rex for that, because he's the one who maintains that and makes it a fun environment for everybody. You can find him, by the way, on Twitter at Cranky T-Rex. Use at crankytrx.blogspot.com, buzzpo.com, occasionally hotair.com, and who knows, while I'm gone, maybe he'll kick in a post or two. He's certainly welcome to do it anytime he wants, and we are always happy to see a Cranky T-Rex post go up at hotair.com. Let's go ahead and play. Do we have anybody else? No, I guess we don't. We aren't handing out troll guns these days. Of course, we aren't seeing too many trolls either, but that's all right. We got to start handing out a few more troll guns, I think. All right, who else has been in the chat room? Don't forget to put up your URLs and your Twitter handles in the chat room. We're all about shameless blog promotion here at the Ed Morrissey Show. All right, we got conservative and liberal hands. We've got Fausta from faustusblog.com, a great Western Hemisphere blog. She covers this Nisman stuff in Argentina like nobody else. So if you're interested in that, and you should be because it's important, you should be reading faustusblog.com every single day. I do as well. Guelph, Jeff Dunitz from jeffdunitz.com. Also, by the way, covering this story at jeffdunitz.com. TheLidBlog.com, I think, is another one of the URLs. But you can use either one of those will work. He's also on Twitter at YidWithLid, so you can follow him there. Juanito Cabron, Mr. Fastbucks, one of the fabulous troubles. And by the way, the Hugh Hewitt Show starts in 30 minutes, folks. You can watch it at the Huniverse, HUGHNIVERSE.com, the troll-free web surfing experience for Hugh Hewitt listeners. I'm a member. You should be a member too. No, I don't get paid to say that. I just like it, and I'm hoping that everybody gets involved in it. And you can also watch the show on Ustream through the website. Prairie Dog SD, say hi to your wife for me. It's been a long time since we've shared an airplane together. Rick 2, Right Wing Aviator, welcome back to the show. Scoot65 is back, yay! Via Paso at the Ancestral Morrissey Manse. Hi, Mom. The first mate behind me, keeping me on the straight and narrow. The terrible towel is out. The Steelers won a Monday Night Football game. Yeah! Terrible towels flying all over the place. All right. I want to thank Andrew Malcolm and Salena Zito for being my guests today. I'll be gone for a while. I'm going to be enjoying myself on vacation, but I'll be back on October 27th with more fun here at the Ed Morrissey Show. Don't miss a minute of it. And we'll see you later, folks. Thank you.